Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Super Cheese video. And the long-awaited PvP changes have arrived. And in today's video, I'm going to be making a prediction PvP tier list on the solo shuffle bracket and what are going to be the implications and results, which classes are going to be rising to the top and which are going to be staying where they are and which could be falling down to the bottom as a result. And if you want to make sure that you're staying up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, then make sure to smash that subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated. So let's get started here. Affliction warlocks. Now, nerfs to demon hunters are buffs to affliction locks because this was one of your direct counters or most difficult specialization to deal with. Also, mages are getting buffed and you do well into mages. So these are two things that are contributing to affliction likely improving slightly, but I don't think it's going to be remarkable. While I've personally been playing it quite a lot on my stream, you can follow me live. It's linked in the description down below. Around 25 to 2600 with this. It feels decently fun, but can have really frustrating situations. It's typically with rogues. Now, do note that rogues are also getting nerfed, although I think Outlaw Rogue is likely going to feel more hit against physical damage dealers than casters. So for me, Affliction's probably coming in somewhere like a B or an A. We'll leave it in A for now, but it's likely going to be moving around a bit as we go through this tier list. Arcane Mage is one of the few mage specializations actually receiving nerfs. Reductions to the damage in Ring of Fire are going to be definitely felt by Arcane, as this is a significant contribution of your damage. Also, buffs to Survival Hunter are pretty substantial, with it being 16% damage to some abilities and 3% overall. And Hunters typically are very difficult for Arcane, so I could see it struggling, but it's still got really good mobility, which is going to enable it against a lot of the melee DPS, which there are more than there are less. Melee DPS and solo shuffle is definitely dominated, which makes me think that it's still probably going to be, in the top area when it comes to solo shuffle. Arms Warrior, definitely going to be enjoying the nerfs to demon hunters and outlaw rogues. It's probably going to be doing a lot more damage to those classes. I think those classes specifically against physical damage dealers in storm bolts, taking a lot of damage, are going to be a lot more vulnerable in those situations. But you're definitely not going to like the frost mage buffs. You're not going to like Hunter getting better. I could see that making it difficult for you. I may even have to make more tiers on this list, honestly, as I'm going through this, because otherwise I'm feeling like I'm just going to start shoving everything on A. Do note it's probably a good idea to compare range to range and melee to melee. For now, I'm going to leave it on the A tier. I think that it is decently well-rounded. I've personally been playing it at around 2600 at the moment. I think it is a well-rounded melee DPS, but you will notice frost mages and mages in general and hunters are very difficult to deal with, specifically, and those specs are likely going to be, we're going to see like a little bit of an uptick in those given the buffs that are coming to those specs. Assassination Rogue is going to be a struggle bus. You didn't receive any changes. Now, obviously, nerfs to demon hunters are going to help you, but that's helping everybody else. Nerfs to outlaw are also going to help you, but again, that's helping everybody else. I actually just got 2400 on Outlaw Rogue in my solo shuffle challenge on my stream, but when I played Assassination, it felt a lot harder, even with the complexity of Outlaw. Assassination just really didn't feel like it had a lot to go for it, so I'm tempted to put it somewhere on the lower end at the moment. It's likely going to feel better again because of the nerfs to those specs, but I think still think it's going to be one of the hardest specs to climb in solo shuffle. Balanced Druid, you're going to need some frenzied regen buffs, which is going to help. Now, I'm pretty biased with Boomkin. I tend to shove it up under the top. I just actually played it, and I think I got like number 2 Moonkin or almost number 1 Moonkin, and I think that it's really good. And I've got a bunch of guides on here as well if you'd like to watch those if you're struggling with Moonkin. But I can see why at lower ratings, considering it's got one of the higher death rates, why it's going to be a bit more of a struggle. Timing your cooldowns and your crowd control isn't maybe as intuitive as some other ranged DPS specializations, but it's definitely going to be nice to get those buffs to frenzied regen. Nerfs to demon hunter are going to be really good for you. Nerfs to outlaw rogue are going to be really good for you. Those were two of the major ones that were competing against you. So I'm doing it again. I'm putting it up on the S tier. You're going to be more tanky. Those classes are going to be more likely to be taken down. I'm also going to be putting less pressure onto you. You do decently well into hunters, which are likely going to be more popular. I think you do okay into mages as well. So I'm putting Moonkin up here as it stands. Beast Mastery Hunters are getting kill shot damage buffs, which Again, isn't that dramatic, but Demon Hunter damage coming down and survivability coming down is going to be nice for you, since that was one of the most common melee DPS to just be running at you. Same thing goes for Outlaw Rogue. So you're probably going to feel pretty decent. It has a lot of instant cast damage. I'm actually thinking about taking Beast Mastery on as the next challenge to get to 2400. I think I'm at like 2100 the last time that I tried to pick it up. It feels okay. I'm gonna be slotting it here into the A tier. I feel like balance honestly is getting to a spot where it's getting really good. Like we just had the AWC tournament. The gameplay was phenomenal, probably one of the best tournaments that we've ever had, and that was prior to these hotfixes coming in on some outliers like Outlaw Rogue and Demon Hunter. So I do really think the gameplay for Arena is just getting better and better. And if we get maybe some more tweaks even after this recent round of tweaks, the gameplay is going to be absolutely stellar. Blood DK, this spec is actually really good. So I don't know where I should put this. Like I'm leaving it on D for tank, but Blood DK is actually disgustingly good. So a D for disgustingly good. Brewmaster, not disgustingly good, but it's just going down here on the tank slot. Tank specs are really tough to get rating with. So if you're using one of these specs to try and get like your 1800 elite set, tank specs are going to be really slow and tough to deliver on that. So they're not going to be great. Demonology Warlock. Now, you're definitely going to enjoy the nerfs to Demon Hunter. It's a really common spec. I actually think it's one of the better Warlock specs when it comes to shuffle because you have so much crowd control. I was doing really well on it. I think I was getting just to low 2600s on it. I kind of want to put Demonology on S. I actually think Demonology is really strong. Also to note that Destro is actually getting nerfed. But the Demonic Circle nerfs are actually going to be felt. Melee DPS are going to have a little bit of it. I forgot about the Demonic Circle nerfs. They're going to have a little bit of an easier time getting on you than previous. They don't have to wait as long, basically, to swap back to you after you port. I still think the crowd control and damage output from Demonology, it's not a beginner-friendly spec. So if you're thinking like you're going to do really well at low rating with this, just picking it up, probably not. You're probably going to want to stick to melee DPS, but when we're considering like the overall ladder and what you can do with the curve and what you can accomplish with it, I think it's a top end contender. Destro Warlock's receiving those portal nerfs to Demonic Circle, as well as your Fire Rift, which is targeting like your main core damage output in terms of burst. I still think it's going to be an insanely good spec, and considering that Demon Hunters are getting nerfed, and that was one of the specs that was really tough in Outlaw Rogue. So I'm leaving Destro up on S tier. I just think Destro, if it's on the left, it means I think it's the best out of that row, and then move to the right, it's lesser. So there is a little bit of a tiered distinguishing which is the best on these tier, because left means best and right means worst on that same tier. Devastation Evoker, you're going to love the Demon Hunter nerfs, you're going to love the Rogue nerfs. Be able to one-shot those classes likely a little bit more easily. But defensively, it's a little bit lacking. I just started playing one a little bit kind of casual. I think I just got up to about 2100 on it. It's definitely pretty good at low rating in terms of just fly in, send your cooldowns. You're going to one-shot a lot of people. So I could see cheesing to like an 1800 being pretty easy on this. But when you start pushing higher, it gets a little bit tough, especially with Demon Hunters, even with them getting nerfed in terms of their uptime. So I'm kind of leaning towards wanting to put it like, if I put it here, somebody's not going to agree with Affliction being there, and I could see that. So like maybe here, slightly better than Affliction for right now. Discipline Priest, I still think that it's pretty good in Shuffle. I'm in like the top, 20 on Disc Priest or something like that. Not going to do really good at low ratings, but like if you really want to invest in the spec, you like the play style, you could definitely make it work. I think it's still really strong. Like at least in Shuffle, rank 3s you're going to lose on mana almost always, but in Shuffle, because the pace of the game is so fast, usually you can win before you hit that point where you're completely out of mana. Maybe we put it here for now, even with the buffs. Are we really going to put it on B? I'm going to leave it on B for now, but I really think that it's higher. This is, I actually really think Disc is really good. Ellie Shaman, getting a 3. I don't think they're actually letting the 3% damage buff go through. So nothing really changing for you. It's just the nerfs to Demon Hunter and nerfs to Rogue, which were difficult specs for you. If there's more mages, you're going to do really good. So Ellie Shaman, I really want to kind of put up here on S at the moment. I think it's really good. And this one's pretty beginner friendly as well, because it's almost all instant cast damage. It's a really well-rounded spec. It's decently durable. I think with the nerfs to those outlier specs that were kind of, your counter, you're probably going to feel even better. So it's kind of slotting you up here a little bit higher. We might have to bring this whole list down a tier at the end of this. Enhance, you're getting a healing surge buff. It's not really that great, to be honest. Using your Maelstrom for anything other than damage feels really bad. I think that I want to put you here on B. I think are still solid. You still got some of the hardest hitting attacks in the game, and you can still definitely make it work. By just with the changes coming through, it's the main problem for enhanced still is that you don't have mortal strikes, so you don't have great synergy with casters, and you don't have the type of consistent damage that something like Ret Paladin has at the moment. And also the mobility. You just don't have a lot of the extra range that Ret got in its rework. So no MS and no real like consistent extra range makes it kind of tough in shuffle. Feral Druid, you're getting frenzied regen. I don't know if Feral Druid really A tier, B tier? Because you're definitely Feral Druid is a hard one here. I'm gonna have to try Feral Druid. Honestly, this is one which I don't think it's good at low rating. I think we have to, just based on its survivability, even with the frenzied regen nerf. I'm gonna put it on B tier. It's definitely harder to make work, but it can. Fire Mage getting really big damage buffs across the board. Still kind of squishy. Might struggle with Hunters specifically, especially Survival. I think Survival is going to be like the big winner here. But Marksman is honestly still decently good. After having done the 2400 challenge on it, it's still decently good. But you're going to struggle with those specs because they're decently good. Now, I think it's probably going to come up a tier just in terms of its overall damage. Or maybe this is like the tier where like you've got like a weakness. You're kind of squishy, but you're going to do a remarkable amount of damage. I think I'm going to play my Fire Mage and probably have a lot of fun. Now, Frost Mage, you're more durable than Fire. More well-rounded, I'd say, but I think Fire is honestly a bit of an easier spec to climb, but maybe not. On Tuesday, the Frostbolt buffs mean the Glacial Spike build's probably getting better. The Frostbolt build's going to be getting better. Where do we want to put this? Now, you're going to do really good into all the melee DPS, so it's honestly one of the better casters to play at low rating. I think you're definitely going to be coming up, probably closer to where Arcane is. I think Arcane was previously like the best mage spec to play in Shuffle if you were playing at a moderate level. But now I think Frost is definitely going to be coming up into more competition. Frost DK feels absolutely terrible in Shuffle. It's a very niche spec that needs like this grouped up burst strategy, and if you can't, it's really tough to get that in Shuffle. You don't have mortal strikes, so if you get like casters, you're just completely useless. It felt really hard, and just not really fun either in Shuffle. I would not recommend it if you're trying to get like 1800 or any sort of rating. Unholy is going to do way better than Frost for Shuffle. Fury Warrior, you're getting a minor execute buff, but I don't think that's enough. I think Fury Warrior and Frost DK, I think you're better than Frost DK, but only slightly. Even with the execute buff, I think you're still going to struggle. It just feels like it can't keep up with the type of burst damage that Arms Warrior has, and it's basically in direct competition. It just still feels very weak. Guardian Druid, we're going to leave the tanks on the tanks here. Havoc Demon Hunter, this is the big one in question, right? With all the changes coming through, where is it going to be? Now it's moderately, slightly more squishy. I think it is going to be a decent amount of damage loss with the Throw Glaive, with Soul Scar, and your bleed applications, and your Essence Break. So hopefully you're not just like tabbing to a healer and one-tapping them immediately. I think you're going to be noticeably weaker into things like Rogues and Warriors and possibly Hunters like Marksman that burst you down. Given the changes coming through, but you still have Glimpse immunity and you still have Blur, and Blur is still one of the best cooldowns in the game. So I'm honestly still leaving you on S tier, but you're probably not, you're not going to be like complete God mode. Maybe we would have had like God tier before, but I think you're probably still going to feel pretty S tier. Holy Priest, every time I watch somebody playing Holy Priest and Shuffle, some of the best healers, I've played it myself, it doesn't look like a great time. It looks like a really big struggle. A lot of times I've seen people lose more than win. So it doesn't seem that great to me. Personally in Shuffle. So if you're like JT in EU or something, like the best player, I think that you can definitely, but even just an average level player or moderate level, like I've seen Absterge, I've seen Sea-Doo, I've seen almost every other healer at the top level trying to play this, and it just doesn't look like they're having a great time. It looks like a pretty big struggle. I think it's still probably going to be the case. Holy Paladin, you're getting some extra damage, but it's not really that much. I think it's like maybe 8k extra damage on your judgment. Now, Denounce builds could maybe be kind of cheesy. It's definitely worth experimenting with it, but I don't think it's great. You're kind of a healer where if you get Rogues and Hunters in your lobby, you do really good. And if you get anything else, it's kind of like tough luck against most of the best healers in the game, like Druid and Shaman. So for me, I think Paladin's probably coming in like somewhere at around with where Disc is. Marksmanship Hunter, I think is going to be really good because all the mages are going to come out wanting to try out their buffs, so it's probably going to be really good. You're going to be more likely to be able to kill the rogues as well as and the demon hunters with the nerfs that come through. So I'm going to give Marksmanship Hunter a little bit of a higher ranking, I think, this time around, somewhere in and around with Beast Mastery Hunter. Mistweaver is going to be really good. You're getting a lot of throughput. They're buffing the Fist Weaving. I think if you can play both Fist Weaver and Caster and swap depending on the lobby, if you're fighting a lot of casting dot damage, switch to Fist Weaver. If you're fighting a lot of crowd control and burst, switch to Caster. You're going to do really well. So I'm putting Mistweaver here onto A tier. I think it's likely going to be a really good spec for Shuffle. Outlaw Rogue, not beginner friendly. I'll tell you, the first day that I played this, I've never raged harder. I think I lost any remaining hair that I have on my head, and I got some stress, like wrinkles on my forehead from the first day of playing it. It is not beginner friendly. It took me a week to figure out what was going on with it, and then I managed to get 2400, and now I actually really like the spec. But initially it was rough. So don't go for Rogue in general. Is just not a good class to go for it. If you're just new, you're gonna need to spend some time with it if you want to make it work. But Outlaw is probably the most worthwhile, even with all the changes coming through. I still think it's going to be good. I think you might have a tougher time with Marks Hunter, Warriors, Bursty Melee. I think you might have a harder time, but I still think you're probably going to be S tier. Preservation Evoker, a lot of the changes aren't affecting abilities that you take, talents that you take, and I've been doing it recently, trying to get 2400 on it. It feels really hard. It feels really hard. It feels like your throughput is not there. I still think that's probably going to be the case for Preservation, so I'm kind of slotting you down here. It felt really rough. Now there are moments where you can get like a bunch of damage out with Disintegrate and Fire Breath and feel really cool and get like a one shot or something. But if that one shot gets countered, it becomes really tough to keep up with your throughput. I think Preservation is still probably going to have those problems. Prot Warrior, just slotting the tank guys down here. Prot Warrior as well. Resto Shaman didn't get any changes, so it's probably going to be still really good. I'm slotting it up here onto S tier. I think you're going to do a lot of damage with the Flame Shock Lava Burst still. Really good instant healing with the Riptide and the Ascendance procs. The only problem at lower rating is people not staying in your Earthen Wall totems. I highly recommend getting like some macros and some pings so you can ping and have /yell commands when you put these down. It makes it a lot more likely that people will stay in it, but still not a guarantee. But I still think it's really good. I'm playing my Shaman in like the top 10, coming from a beginner and advancing to the top level of the Shaman. I think that it's going to be really, really good. Resto Druid, this is a tough one. You're getting a little bit weaker. You're still a really good passive healer. There's situations, again, where like Paladin is better than Shaman, Paladin is better than Druid, but it's really kind of spec dependent. Overall, you're going to notice that's harder. And I just did the Holy Pally 2400 challenge. I've done the Resto Druid one as well. I think you're probably still better than Monk. I think Shaman's probably better than you, though. You're probably somewhere in here. I think somewhere in here between Shaman, a little better than Monk probably still. Ret Paladin, I think is still really good. No changes coming through, but obviously you're going to crush demon hunters now, I think, and you're going to crush rogues. I think previously you were one of the best specs actually into Outlaw Rogue. You're really well rounded, really good beginner friendly, good moderate, good advanced level spec to try and climb the ladder if you're looking for like an elite transmog. So I'm gonna be slotting you in here above Warrior on the A tier. Shadow Priest, not beginner friendly. I really want to do this one next time I can get some conquest for some haste gear. I'm going to be doing this challenge to try and get 2400 because it looks really fun, but you have to cast a lot, and it's generally not very beginner friendly. So take that into account, but I still think you're really good as you move up towards the top end of the ladder. They nerfed a lot of specs that are going to be difficult for you. I think you do decently well into mages with the ability to spam Purge. So you're probably going to slot somewhere here on the A tier, probably better than Frost Mage. Overall, at a moderate to high level, you're going to be better than Frost Mage. Subtlety Rogue, again, this is like hit or miss. You either know how to do the one-shots and resets or you don't. So you're either going to be hard stuck 1400 or you're going to be pushing maybe like 2500 plus. You really have to know exactly what you're doing on this spec. There's no like wiggle room, kind of just messing around with your buttons and being able to still win like a lot of other specs. You have to know exactly what you're doing. So I think because of that, it's held back a bit. So I'm going to put it here. I think at the absolute highest level, though, like you can make it work, but it's hit or miss. If you're a beginner, I wouldn't recommend it. So definitely important to listen to the commentary for each of these rankings in order to identify where they're going. Survival Hunter, I'm taking a gamble with this one. I'm throwing Survival Hunter up onto S tier. I think that even though it didn't need more damage, the fact that it is getting a lot more damage could make it really spooky. I think that it could be really spooky. This is the one big like outlier of all the changes coming through that, again, this is a prediction. I've been decently accurate in my prediction, but I'm taking a bit of a risk with this one. But I definitely want to check out Survival Hunter when Tuesday comes. Unholy DK, again, Nurse the Demon Hunter, going to be a benefit to you as it is everybody else. Nurse Outlaw Rogue as well. You're probably still kind of... do I want to put you on B with enhancement? Is that really where I want to put you? I feel like you're probably below Warrior, somewhere in and around with Warrior on A tier. I think is about fair. Vengeance actually is pretty good, but we're putting you down onto tank tier. Windwalker Monk, still really good. I think you're better than Warrior. Honestly, I think you might even be better than Ret. Just really good damage overall, really tanky with a lot of defensive cooldowns. Exactly what you need to be viable in solo shuffle. Augmentation Evoker, I think I've been harsh on in the past. I actually think that it is pretty decently good. We're going to put it up here kind of like in the mid-range at about a B tier. I definitely think that you can make it work here with Fire Mage. Fire Mage could be a little bit higher, but this is where I'm sitting. I've played like a majority of these specs, if not almost all of them, I think at this point, in Shuffle to at least around 2100. So I've been able to get the experience from playing most of them from complete beginner to moderate to upper level on the ladder, and those are basically how the experiences have been, and this is how I think the changes are going to affect them. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this tier list, this prediction, and this update. I will relay the actual tier list after the patch is out and we get to see everything moving forward. So thank you very much for watching. Hope that you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.